Okay, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another edition of Earth Day Live. Our session today is titled Adopt the Earth and Go Clean Up, participating in World Cleanup Day and beyond. So this edition of Earth Day Live will feature voices from the cleanup space who have impressive careers in protecting and keeping communities around the world clean. So the panel will focus on ways to make an impact this World Cleanup Day, current initiatives on how to keep our public spaces clean, and how to participate in cleanups year-round. So I'm your moderator. My name is Matthew Leffler. I am the Great Global Cleanup Director at earthday.org. And so honoring earthday.org's mission to diversify, educate, and activate the environmental movement worldwide, the Great Global Cleanup is a year-round campaign that engages millions of volunteers in creating clean communities worldwide. So on behalf of earthday.org, I'd like to thank our partners today, Let's Do It World, National Cleanup Day, and Keep America Beautiful for making this effort possible as we team up to honor World Cleanup Day on September 18th of 2021, which is this coming Saturday, or the following Saturday, excuse me. So before I introduce our panelists today, we have a short video that amplifies the important message of World and National Cleanup Day.
Happy National Cleanup Day! We love National Cleanup Day, September 18th, 2021.
We love National Cleanup Day!
Hi, I'm Mayor Todd Gloria. National Cleanup Day is on September 18th, and San Diego is ready to do its part.
Here in San Jose, we are enthusiastically in on National Cleanup Day. We are launching a mass effort with thousands of volunteers.
We love National Cleanup Day, September 18th, 2021! Woo!
Greetings from sunny Southern California. I'm Supervisor Karen Spiegel, Chair for the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. I'm here today to encourage everyone who is able to get involved in World Cleanup Day and the simple act of picking up litter.
Excellent. Okay, so now to move on to our panelists, I'm going to introduce them one by one, and we'll start our discussion shortly after. So our first panelist is Steve Jewett. He is an entrepreneur, inventor, patent holder, and nonprofit leader. He's the founder of National Cleanup Day, Clean Trails, and cleanup.org. Steve is a public policy advocate for clean outdoors. So Steve serves in a variety of capacities for other organizations as well, including the Global Cleanup Administrator at earthday.org. He's the country leader with World Cleanup Day and the U.S. delegate to Let's Do It World, and also an advisor to clogging and trash tag challenge initiatives. So next up, we have Jennifer Tabanico. She is president and owner of Axon Research, a firm that specializes in changing behavior for the public good by applying marketing and social science research to outreach programs that promote safe and healthy and sustainable communities. So Jennifer has her Master's of Arts degree in experimental psychology and 20 years of experience developing behavior change programs for public and private agencies across the world. We then have Meg Carney. She is an outdoor and environmental writer, the senior editor for Cleanup News, and the author of the upcoming book, Outdoor Minimalist. She's been a writer for over 6 years and primarily works in the digital content space. Our last panelist is Dr. David Scott. So Dr. Scott joined Keep America Beautiful in 2019 as a senior director of research monitoring and evaluation. David oversees research in support of the Keep America Beautiful mission and data and evaluation strategies to help understand the impact of the organization and its network of 700 community-based affiliates. So most recently, David led the Keep America Beautiful 2020 National Litter Study, analyzing the prevalence and impact of litter across the U.S. In addition, to overseeing research, David leads tech and data ventures.
So it looks like we're having some technical issues there. Just to make sure everybody's hearing me correct. Not sure exactly what we finished off with there, Matt, but thank you, David. Thank you, Meg, and thank you, Jennifer, for being here and also supporting a Clean Outdoors. The theme today is Adopt the Earth and Go Clean Up. The idea is that what we're asking for people to do is to take one little step to help keep the earth clean, to keep plastics out of the waterways, the oceans, your cities, and everywhere else. And the activity that we want you to do is for World Cleanup Day in 180 countries approximately this year, or obviously in the United States as well for National Cleanup Day, to go out and do a cleanup. Participate either in a large group or a small group. Do it safely, do it with COVID in the background, and just be safe and have fun. So just a brief history of where we started as far as World Cleanup Day and National Cleanup Day is that we had a start with Bill Willoughby, who's a friend of mine, a hiker, and the two of us would go out and take hikes along trails in San Diego. We had a good time. We picked up litter. We talked about ways to get rid of it, eventually start up a nonprofit called Clean Trails. A couple years later, we had National Cleanup Day. We held the first one in 2017. And then in 2018, we joined up with World Cleanup Day, which is organized out of Estonia in Europe. Heidi wasn't able to make the call today, but it's a wonderful organization. They put a lot of time into organizing cleanups on a national and global basis around the world. With that, pretty much everything else flows from there. We support the concept, a lot of the organizations, so that we can have a clean outdoors. With that, Matt, back to you.
Excellent. Let's hope my microphone's a little more clear this time. So next we're going to hear from Jennifer Tabanico. She's the president owner of Axon Research. And today she is going to discuss more so the psychology of cleanups. So take it away, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Matt. I'm glad to be here on this panel, and been working for the last several years supporting Steve, Clean Trails, and World Cleanup Day to help bring in some insights from social science and the relationship that has to littering behavior and also involvement in cleanups. So I'm just going to talk about 4 key points related to that, what we like to call litterology, the overlap between social science and behavior and litter. And so the first point I want to make is that behavior matters. When we look at our environmental problems, they often seem really overwhelming. And if we look across air quality and waste and litter and marine debris, it seems that there's so much, and how can we ever make a difference? But when we look across all those problems, there is a common theme, and that is that these environmental problems are at some level rooted in individual behaviors. That is, it's a person's behavior, choice, or habit that has an influence on those environmental problems. So I often like to say environmental problems are behavior problems. And so to achieve those positive environmental outcomes that we all are looking for, that's going to require changes in behavior, and it's going to require changes in behavior at a very great scale. The second thing, though, is not only that behavior matters, but the behavior matters. So even if you look just within the domain of littering, there are many, probably hundreds of different behaviors related to litter and how litter gets to different places. And I know you'll be hearing from David later on about the kinds of litter that we see. But these are all individual behaviors, whether it's somebody tossing a cigarette out the window or maybe outside of the bar onto the ground, whether it's not covering a load or tossing trash in the back of a pickup that then blows out. Maybe it's keeping trash cans covered, trash cans overfilled, and so birds and other wildlife are pulling trash out, or it's blowing out. Or kids at a park or a beach just forgetting, running off to the next activity and leaving trash behind. And I could go on, but the point here is that each of these individual actions are related to the environmental problem, but each of those actions have different barriers associated with them. So just because somebody cares about litter and keeping the community clean, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to engage in all of these different behaviors. So because each of those have different barriers. So if someone, the reason that someone throws a cigarette on the ground is different than the reason they leave a lid off a trash can or allow trash cans to get overfilled. So to really get at behavior change, we need to understand those behaviors and the barriers that are tied to those individual actions. The third more positive thing here about behavior, which behavior can sound, oh gosh, I've made it really complex. There's a lot of behaviors and there's a lot of different reasons that people don't engage in them. But we also know that behavior can change. And so if we look historically across things like seatbelt use or smoking, or even just the recent changes in people's behavior in response to the pandemic, we know that people can and will make changes in their behaviors. But traditionally, the way we've approached that has been to take a knowledge and awareness approach. So we spend our time telling people that this is an important problem and getting them to care about it. But knowledge and awareness are only two of the barriers to behavior changes. And there are many other things that influence people's actions across a wide range of behaviors. But there is hope. We know that behavior can change. And beyond that, we know that there are tools out there to help us get to those behavior changes. And particularly, there's many tools in the social sciences that can help us, whether it's helping people make proper disposal decisions or purchase decisions or engaging in cleanups. We can pull from knowledge and social science and help us to get to those goals. So I'm going to talk just very briefly about four that are most related to littering and cleanup. And first is social norms. So in general, as humans, we tend to look to others to decide how we should think, feel, or act in particular situations. And when enough people start thinking, feeling, and acting a certain way, they become these ingrained social norms or sort of unwritten laws about how we should think or act. There are two primary types of social norms that we like to talk about. First is an injunctive norm, which is generally what people think should be done in a particular situation. And there's a widely held injunctive norm that littering is not what we do. It's generally socially unacceptable in most situations to litter. And we see that across many different cultures. But there's also a descriptive norm. Descriptive norms provide information about what people are doing. So when we see a place that is clean, that is a descriptive norm that people don't litter here. But if we see a place that's littered, that indicates that, hey, litter is a problem here. Other people are doing this. Other people are leaving waste here. Other people are throwing cigarettes on the ground here. This is what is done. And when those two things are out of a line, the strongest norm is driving behavior. So even when there's this widely held belief that litter is not a good thing, we still see littering happening at greater frequency in areas that are litter. So you'll often hear people say litter begets litter. And there have been many, many, many studies to demonstrate that people are more likely to litter in an environment that is already littered. So by cleaning up these areas, that's not only are we getting trash immediately out of the environment, but we're also decreasing the likelihood of future litter. The second thing we know from social science is that people are more likely to engage in behaviors if it's convenient for them to do so, and less likely to engage in it if it is inconvenient. So in observational studies of littering behavior, we see that the further people have to walk to a trash can, the more likely it is that they're going to litter. So we often think that people who litter do so because they just don't care, they just have a bad attitude, but we also know that people will litter. People who hold these beliefs that maybe have positive beliefs about the environment are also more likely to litter if there is not good infrastructure. So attitudes, knowledge, awareness, and social norms are important, but so is infrastructure and having conveniently located trash cans. Third, and really interesting, is research around self-perception. Historically, we've really tried to change people's attitudes and hope that they will embrace a strong environmental attitude and then therefore engage in behaviors that protect the environment. But we find that that's true to an extent. There is a relationship between those attitudes and behaviors, but we find that the reverse is actually stronger. Getting people to engage in behaviors that are protective of the environment helps them form a perception of themselves and form an identity that is supportive of that behavior. So if I'm out there picking up litter, I come to see myself as someone who cares for the environment. And not only am I more likely to engage in litter prevention behaviors, but I may also be more likely to engage in other behaviors related to environmental protection because I see myself as that kind of person. And finally, a tool that has emerged over the last 2 decades that really helps us to address some targeted litter issues and environmental issues is a process called community-based social marketing. And I won't go into great detail about it here, but it's become pretty popular in environmental circles as well as health and safety. But it's a model that has demonstrated, again, that behavior can change. And what it does is unpack specific actions, specific behaviors. Maybe it's a specific litter problem in an area, and understand that behavior by learning what are the things that decrease the likelihood that people will engage in the behavior you want and what would increase it. And we're looking both at factors of the individual as well as external factors like infrastructure. We then develop strategies that address those, pilot test them, make sure they work, and then deploy them on the broad scale. And using this process, we've seen behavior changes across a wide range of environmental behaviors. So just to wrap that up, behavior does matter, and your behavior matters in participating in cleanups by keeping areas clean. When we know, again, litter begets litter. So just keeping the areas clean decreases the likelihood of litter. And behavior can change, and these are just a few ways that we can help behavior change to achieve broad environmental outcomes. Thanks, Steve. Turn it back to you, Matt.
Awesome. I love that. Litter begets litter. So next we're going to hear from Meg. So Meg Carney is the senior editor for Cleanup News, and today she'll be discussing the role of digital media within the cleanup space and how awareness can lead to tangible action, and also the importance of sharing success stories in the environmental movement. So Meg, take it away.
Thanks, Matt. Like Matt said, I'm the senior editor of Cleanup News. And for those of you that are tuning in that aren't aware of what exactly that is, it was launched in September of 2020, and it was started by Steve and Bill of National Cleanup Day. They brought me on to help them kind of finish the launch and put together some of the editorial side of things in the digital media space. And so I've worked with them since the spring of 2020. And the underlying mission of the Cleanup News is basically to put cleanups out of business, which is kind of a tall order, especially for a digital media website. But that's because there's a lot of different aspects that play into effective cleanups, kind of playing off of a lot of the social sciences that Jennifer talked about. Awareness and caring can only do so much. But through the cleanup news and trying to put the cleanups out of business, we are taking a no, care, do approach to turn awareness into action. And so we cover two different types of stories. One of them is more research-based to kind of spread awareness about some of the larger issues, because we do want to talk really thoroughly about cleanups and the cleanup space, but that is a relatively reactionary approach to a larger scale issue. And so looking at more of the systemic issues is important for consumers as well, so we can learn more about how waste is produced from extraction to disposal. And that can kind of encourage more people to start to engage in different cleanups around the world. But as many of you probably know, when we are tuning in to news sources so consistently throughout our day, like if you're anything like me, then you have news updates coming in on your phone a lot, and you tune into a lot of different newsletters from different environmental organizations. A lot of it can be based in some fear mongering and really depressing topics. And as an individual, that can be really discouraging to want to make any of those behavior changes that Jennifer maybe talked about. And so that's where awareness can only really get you so far, and you need to move into the action aspect. And what we've seen from the cleanup news is that sharing the knowledge is really important, and the statistics and the images about the litter around the world, but also sharing the success stories of people being able to clean up areas, even if it only lasts for a week or a couple of months and it needs to be cleaned up again. Sharing those success stories is a lot more inspiring and helps to encourage more people to want to participate in cleanups, and that creates that actionable change. So for example, we had a couple different stories. One of them was a brother and sister duo that started a cleanup initiative in their neighborhood. And that encouraged a lot of other kids their age, middle school age kids and families in their neighborhoods to continue cleaning up and starting more initiatives in their school and community. We also covered a story with the president of Iceland, who started plogging on a regular basis to try and encourage his citizens to engage in the outdoors in a new fashion and encourage other world leaders to set a positive example in the environmental space. And so a lot of those inspiring stories sometimes have a stronger psychological effect on the reader, instead of kind of making the situation seem really, really hopeless. And so since National Cleanup Day is starting on September 18th, it's coming up really fast. Now is a really good time to share your personal success stories. And that can come from an individual or a group of people or even an organization that wants to share their story. And we'll have a banner that has the URL for the Cleanup News website. So you can go to the homepage, it'll have a contact button, and it'll have all the information as to how to share your success story as well. And that's all for me. So back to Matt.
Awesome. I love it. I think, in the past, year or so with lockdowns and social distancing, we've seen, the power that digital media, and social media interaction has. And for those listening, that, are still social distancing, that may not be able to do a cleanup on the ground, I think, there's still lots of ways that you can participate. And most of that is on digital media, sharing positive success stories, and inspiring others to, by either raising awareness or influencing people to do things on the ground. So I think it's a very timely topic. So our last panelist, and then we'll move into a general discussion, is Dr. David Scott. So Dr. Scott is the Senior Director, Research and Monitoring and Evaluation at Keep America Beautiful. Today, he will talk about, what the Keep America Beautiful 2020 National Litter Study tells us about the importance of cleanups and how to keep America beautiful, and essentially how the organization is mobilizing different communities around the U.S. And the world to engage in cleanups and other activities to end litter. So Dr. Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here. I'm thrilled to follow Jennifer, Steve, and Meg. And I'm going to emphasize some of the points that they all made here. And I'm happy to represent Keep America Beautiful and our network of 700 community-based affiliates who mobilize millions of people each year to take care of their communities. And part of that work, conduct thousands of cleanups and collect millions of pounds of litter. Our work is rooted in the belief that everyone has a right to live in a beautiful community. And in today's age, to remain a healthy and sustainable society, we need to ensure that our communities are clean, green, and beautiful. I'm going to continue the conversation that Meg and Jennifer and Steve have talked about, engaging people to take part in everyday action, but I'm going to root my comments in data because I'm a scientist. And I'll specifically talk about rooting it in our most recent Keep America Beautiful 2020 National Litter Study, which you can find more about at kab.org/litter study. So let me set the stage. And probably to this audience, you already know this is a big problem. But in the U.S., the study found estimated that there were 50 billion pieces of litter on the ground in America at the time of the study. That's a lot. About 24 billion pieces of that is along roadways. And in this study, we developed the first national estimate of the amount of litter along America's surface waterways. And we find that there are slightly more, in fact, 26 billion pieces of litter along waterways. So scientific estimates like this are important for a number of different reasons as we tackle the problem of litter through cleanups and other activities. First and foremost, they give us a benchmark to know if we're doing things better. I'm going to lean on Meg there. We want to put cleanups out of business. So how do we know if they're working? Well, we need data to support if the problem is getting better. And through benchmarks like this and comparing against our 2009 study, which Jennifer was part of, we find that there's been a 54% reduction in the number of pieces of litter along America's roadways. Second, having this scientific data about what the litter is, where it is on the ground, where it's coming from, all of that informs cleanups. So the idea about making cleanups more effective as we try to put them out of business is informed by data like this. And I want to state, and it's been inferred by everybody, I want to emphasize that cleanups are not only reactive, but they are in fact preventative because of the things Jennifer in particular pointed to, because litter begets litter. And in our research, we find that cleanups alone can lead to sustained reductions of 30 or even more than 40% in litter over several months in public spaces. Yes, the effectiveness of that cleanup, that one cleanup, is going to decrease over time. It's going to decay. But lots of interventions that we do in society lose effectiveness over time. So when cleanups alone are an effective preventative measure, when you pair them, as Jennifer talked about, when you pair them with things like infrastructure to improve the convenience, and you pair them with effective messaging through things like community-based social marketing, like we do in our cigarette litter prevention program that was developed with colleagues of Jennifer's, we see at Keep America Beautiful an average of a 50% reduction in cigarette butt litter in the places where that is taken into place. And cleanups are a key part of that. In fact, cleanups are a foundation to preventing litter. Littering is less likely to occur in clean spaces than in spaces that are already littered. And that is, I think, important to help to understand as we address one of the criticisms of cleanups. And one of the criticisms is, of course, we're not getting to the source of litter and littering when we're cleaning up. And if we're going to get to the source of litter, cleanups aren't helping. Well, in fact, they are. And if you take a problem like marine litter, which is top of mind for lots of us, the spigot for that litter, the arteries that lead to the oceans, are America's surface waterways. And that's not just the big rivers. That's not just the mighty Mississippi. That's these intermittent streams and gullies where things get thrown and tossed or blown out, and they find their way to these places. And during big storms, like we're seeing more and more, that's making it into our rivers and eventually into our oceans. So cleanups along waterways are important. For instance, this data around waterways is important because it tells us cleanups matter along waterways. We don't have infrastructure or services generally along waterways to eliminate litter. We need to get people in there along the shores to clean things up. So cleanups matter, especially for our waterways. But the study also teaches us some really important things about how litter gets to waterways, for instance, and that a lot of it gets there from our roadways. So from a preventative standpoint, by the time it gets to the waterways, we may even be too late. So cleanups, effective services and infrastructure along roadways and in our communities are really important. So cleanups are super important, not just when it gets to the waterways, but also along roadways. Do you mind advancing the slide? Because what I want to talk about is, so how do we engage people, both at the individual level and at the community level? And we want them to be part of the solution. Of course, we never want people to litter, and we want communities to have effective policies, services, and infrastructure in place to prevent litter. But we also need people to take part. So what do you do? Meg really talked about this a little bit. We want to talk about what people can do to be part of the solution. There's this great phrase called psychological distance. We want to reduce the distance between the problem, this massive, massive problem, and what I can do about it. Because at 50 billion pieces, that's sort of overwhelming, right? So with this study, we calculate, what does 50 billion pieces mean? And for every resident in America, that equates to about 152 pieces of litter for every single person. So that is to say, if everybody went out and picked up 152 pieces of litter, then we never had anybody litter again. And if we correctly managed all the waste so that we didn't have unintentional litter, we wouldn't have litter on the ground anymore. So while 50 billion pieces of litter on the ground is big and it scales, right? It gives people a sense. We want it to give people a sense that this is a massive problem. But 152 says you can be part of the solution. 152 and you, this challenge that we've put out there says we can, with individual action, we can help take steps to solve the problem. I know that I can walk out my door where I live and I can pick up 152 pieces of litter within a couple of hours. So even if I convince myself that I've never littered or I don't litter, which is not true, I know that I can be part of the solution, and 152 makes it achievable. And that's what we're doing with this campaign. We're encouraging everyone in America to become part of the solution. So that's not just us, right? So we have events. We have the Great American Cleanup. We have Trash Dash. We partner with Steve and with EarthDay.org for National Cleanup Day, World Cleanup Day, the Great Global Cleanup, the International Coastal Cleanup, because these are all important to get people engaged. But what we ground our work is, we definitely want them to get engaged as individuals, but we want them also to get engaged at the community level. So our 700 affiliates partner with governments, local companies, schools, retailers, other nonprofits in their community to take action more regularly and have a greater impact by taking that action more regularly. Because we know that community action scales individual action. So let's take a cleanup like the one that you see on the screen here from our affiliate, Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful in Gwinnett County, Georgia, with all of these beautiful young people participating here. It's such a happy face. It's an image for me. Not that they have to go out and clean up. I'm not happy about that. But what we're doing is we're affecting them in several ways that Jennifer in particular talked about. We are not only, we know, taking care of the problem that exists on those roads, on those waterways in that day. We're doing something that we know research shows to be preventative in nature. And it's an educational opportunity because of the things that Jennifer talked about, because we're talking to them about norms and self-perception. We're building efficacy, we're affecting change in a number of ways. For anybody who's ever participated in a cleanup, and I know Steve will say this in spades, once you see litter, you can't unsee it ever again in your life. It is there everywhere. And this is what participating in cleanups does, is it makes you an effective part of the solution. In fact, as I identified before from the data, it helps reduce litter for some time afterwards. And what we do is we engage, we're not only creating a community solution, but we're engaging people in the community in that solution. Now, again, I'm going to use the scientist hat. A single dose of a treatment often doesn't work. Or it doesn't work as long as we want it to work, or as effectively as we want it to work. So we want people to engage in activities several times in order to have the changes that we want. It's not only about keeping the space clean, because of that community aspect of if we start clean, it's more likely to stay clean. But at the individual level, we believe that we're building that self-perception that Jennifer talked about, and getting people to be part of the solution. And that's these community-based affiliates and this community-based work. It leverages, it builds on top of all the individual efforts that are fantastic. So community affiliates like Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful are really important to engaging people in their community to become part of the solution, through communication, and Cleanup News is an amazing part of that. But just in all the connections that they make in communities. And if we can pop over to the third slide, I'll just wrap up with this. On global, from a global perspective, this works everywhere. These solutions work globally. Cleanups are effective globally. So here I've put up an example of our affiliate, Keep Ghana Beautiful, conducting their Great Ghana Cleanup. They are taking all the things that we've talked about here today, that Meg and Steve and Jennifer have talked about, and they're applying it in a very different environment than the one in which the five of us sit in the United States. So this is a global intervention, and we're thrilled to be able to support it, and we're thrilled to partner here with all the organizations to be a part of it and to sing the praises of community-based work in scaling the effectiveness of individual action and cleanups. And back to you, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much, David. Appreciate that. That was awesome. I think this is a great place to start a discussion here. You really hit on the importance of individual action, and why cleanups matter. And I would love to hear our other panelists take on the importance of working as an individual, and then possibly coming together as a group, and sort of why these cleanups matter in regards to working individually or in groups, as I said before. So Meg or Steve or Jennifer, is there anything that you would like to add to David's point here? Steve, you're muted.
I think I hit the mute button at the unmute button at the same time that the back end did it. So in any case, I did want to make a comment too that what we're doing is non-political. There was a couple of folks that we had from the mayor and mayors, but this is non-political. We want to make sure that we do this in a really good way. The answer to your question, though, in terms of going out and doing things, this is part of a bigger solution by the individual. And I think it's real important that people understand that this is a global initiative that really brings in people from all over the world. And then I wanted to ask Jennifer, how does that feel in terms of the science, and also David, how does that feel in terms of the science, in terms of what people believe if they see there's a solution, not just in the United States and in their communities, but globally?
On the cross-cultural psychology angle, I'm going to have to lean on Jennifer on that one. And I don't know, Jennifer, if the data tells us. I do know that a lot of the research that we use at Keep America Beautiful is much of it's from Europe, quite frankly. So maybe I'm going to toss to my research colleague, if I may, Jennifer. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, in terms of cross-cultural norms, from what I've seen, this isn't my area of expertise necessarily, the cross-cultural aspects of it, that in the injunctive norms about littering tend to cross cultures to a great extent. In the research that I've seen, we do see that sort of common acceptance that's not something that you do, like it's, but that changes in different areas, but generally cross culture, that injunctive norm holds strong. I think for me, the involvement of people, I think so much of what we see on the environmental side is so fearful, and I think Meg alluded to that too. People feel so overwhelmed by this big problem. There's nothing that I can do about it, and with cleanups, there's something very tangible that people can do. And I agree with you, David, just engaging people on that ongoing basis builds that self-efficacy to be able to impact the problems in their community, because these problems are global. And the solution works across different places. And the way in which it works might look different, and the people who get involved might look different. But, the solution is common.
And if I could just add to what Jennifer was saying, I always think of the Jane Goodall quote, think globally, but act locally. And I think that cleanups really embody that message, because it is, like Jennifer is saying, one of the most tangible ways to make a difference in any aspect of the environmental movement, when things can seem really overwhelming and people get eco-anxiety. And also you get to spend time in your community and outdoors. And I think as far as individual change goes, from what I've seen, it feels more effective when other people can see you and you're influencing other people around you. So you're having somewhat of a ripple effect, and you can build a community based on these positive ethics and activities.
Good, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, speaking in regard to communities, would love to hear your perspective on what ways we're able to bring effective cleanups to undeserved communities and countries. In my past life, I had some experience running cleanups and waste management workshops in the Gambia and West Africa, and we saw just a lot of barriers there in terms of getting people to make behavior changes. And a lot of that was lack of infrastructure, and the fact that there wasn't a lot of money being poured into these communities to keep the environment clean. So would love to hear what our panelists think about this topic here.
I think that one's you, Jennifer.
All right. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I would put my community-based social marketing hat on for this one. I mean, while cleanups are a broad solution, it doesn't mean that we can get people to engage in cleanups in the same way everywhere. There are different barriers for different people and different locations and different communities. In some communities there may be concerns about safety, for example, or health, or even, weather or pest related concerns. And understanding those concerns is at the local level is really important. We can't ignore that. And it kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning. Knowledge and awareness are only two drivers of behavior change, or only two of the barriers to behavior change. So tell people that cleanups are important, tell them that they're part of the solution, they care about the environment, but if they don't have the proper equipment, or there are other significant concerns about participating in that, those need to be addressed. And they could be addressed, with infrastructure, like you mentioned, Matt, or, some of the concerns may be like, well, if I participate in this cleanup, I'm going to be perceived as weird. I don't want to be perceived as one of those environmental types. There are real concerns that people have, and those have to be addressed if you really want to get more broad participation. And then there's the second piece that you brought up, Matt, that maybe Steve wants to comment on also, is the investment in the community. So they're investing in the community, but if their municipalities or their governments aren't investing back in the community, then that can really that can undermine that motivation. And so it's just sort of like you need that support, I think, from the community at the larger level to put in the infrastructure. So it's not just, oh, well, here we are cleaning up again, here we are cleaning up again, but there's some investment back in the community to really support what's happening and, keep their motivation up with that mutual investment.
So does that mean that the cleanups themselves are kind of pretty much non-political, but the infrastructure part of it might have a political component to it?
Potentially.
Yeah.
I know I would say it's a barrier that you could face, and having that.
Let's call it non-political. Hey, David, I got a question for you. Keep America Beautiful has affiliates all over the country. I know that there's a lot of them that are in, what you might call an underserved neighborhood or an underserved city. So there's some success that you have on that. Can you address that?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Thanks for asking, because I was chomping at the bit here to jump in, because I think it is tricky. But one of these are lessons learned. Like we've been, we were founded in 1953, and so as an organization, and we've learned some things along the way. And in fact, this idea of how to make this work effective everywhere. I want to start with something that's front and center in our new strategic plan, is the idea of building community resiliency. And that starts by understanding that we need to not only mobilize folks to know that they can be part of the solution, but we have to be inclusive with the solution and make sure that all the voices are heard at the table. So as it pertains to that, Steve, about being successful in what might be considered underserved communities, not only in the U.S. but around the world, we think about. We encourage our affiliates to be inclusive in defining the problem for that community and understanding what is realistic in terms of a set of solutions for that community based on level of interest, level of resources, because depending on the nature of the problem is going to differ from community to community. The resources that they have available and the interest that they have at the given point of time is going to vary. So when we are able to, and this is the we is often it's our affiliates who are driving this action, right size the solution to the community being served. That's where we tend to see the biggest takeoff in success. Perhaps your community is not ready to make the investment in infrastructure because of resource constraints, right? There just maybe not the resources there. So in that case, you take a look around and you say, okay, what can we do? And cleanups are a low-cost way to generate awareness, get people involved, start to develop people's belief that this is a problem and that there are some solutions that are necessary to that problem. And often what will happen, right, is they'll do this and then they'll say, for instance, we've hit the limit perhaps on what we can do with the cleanups, and what we need are some services, infrastructure policies to go along with it. So that's really how it goes, Steve. What I do want to emphasize that model enables the people in the community to define the problem and not have somebody from outside the community tell them what their problem is, because that becomes a significant issue. And in an era where all of our media is global, it may seem that the solution instituted here is the solution that we should institute there. And that's certainly not been our experience. And the last thing is getting, helping, and we work with our affiliates to do this, getting the people in the community to recognize that litter may not be the biggest problem, but it is it's a source of many, many other problems in the community. And there's really good research on that on these days, more and more, in fact, showing that the importance of engaging communities in things like cleanups and beautification and tree planting, not just litter cleanups. These things have really positive impacts on a lot of societal problems that are plaguing our communities. So that's another way that we get people engaged, is recognizing that by taking action on this one issue, we can have some pretty significant downstream positive effects.
Right. Wouldn't it be nice if we could go out and take a hike on our trails, at our beaches, at our parks, in our city, in the mountains, from sea to shining sea, and not see litter, but do something else as well to help out the environment, to help out our community?
It would be nice.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of us are encouraging our people to do it through clogging, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so for everybody that doesn't know, clogging was started by a guy in Europe by the name of Eric Ahlstrom, and it's the act of picking up litter and jogging. And it's jogging, running, walking, whatever it is. And I know that Keep America Beautiful has the Trash Dash. That just started September 1st.
Yep.
Right. And then goes for that's virtual in most places.
Yep.
And that goes until the end of the month, through the end of Cleanup Month.
It does. It does, in fact. Yeah, it ties in beautifully with Cleanup Month and National Cleanup Day and International Coastal Cleanup. All of these things, we all have to support each other. And Trash Dash is exactly that, building the clogging movement in America to get people to go out and do the things that we want to do on a daily basis. At least some of us want to do on a daily basis, which is be out, be outside. This has happened a lot in the during the pandemic. And get out and enjoy the natural environment. But instead of walking by that litter and getting angry about it.
Yes. That's what I always used to do. I used to yell at people.
A trash picker, a glove so you can pick it up, put it, yep, exactly. Pick it up, put it in your bucket, put it in your little bag. And we see this taking place across America. And I'm sure Meg and Cleanup News have done stories on this out there to show that people feel, again, it's the act of, in some cases, a daily cleanup, but it's part of the things that we want to do, and it's and you can do it anywhere, right? And I love the national parks angle. Is there's no reason why when we're out on a hike and we're hopefully healthy people doing that we can't be making our parks, more beautiful places as we're doing that.
Right. So in essence, what a lot of people are doing is they're adopting their trail, their street, their neighborhood, their beach, whatever that is, adopting that block, so to speak. And that expands out. So this on a daily or weekly basis, keeping things a little bit cleaner, and then allows them to potentially change that so that there's not as much litter. And what do you always say about litter begets litter, Jennifer? But what happens if you don't have litter, right? It's less litter begets less litter, right? And then one other thing too that I wanted to note, that in my anecdotal observations, I've seen a lot of litter that's out there that appears to be accidental. Can you talk, Jennifer, about kind of maybe how much of that litter is actually accidental in terms of, somebody putting the litter into, a place where it then falls out, or, whatever that situation is.
And
Yeah,
to jump in really, sorry, I just
go
want to
ahead,
jump in
Matt.
really quickly and just say something with that. This also goes for masks. We actually had a question from someone in the audience about, just seeing tons of masks, and a lot of times these masks are from people doing cleanups, and it's sort of, accidentally disposed of on the streets or something like that. So that's something to speak on as well.
Yeah, Steve, I can't speak to the quantity, how much comes from that accidental. I know we've done a lot of kind of focus studies in different areas. So maybe it's a skate park or at a school. And, from what the studies that we've done across different areas, the vast majority of the littering instances we see are what you could call accidental rather than somewhat the intentional litter. And it varies by site. But, it's the paper falling out of the kid's backpack. It's at, the gas stations, the miscellaneous trash falling out of the inside of the door. And, I think masks potentially similar, coming out of your pocket, out of the side of your purse happened to me just the other day, so I guess I'm officially a litterer. My son's like, Mom, your mask, so, those things do happen. And I think, the cleanups are part of that solution and addressing that. But also it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is that they're different behaviors. So, the behavior might be, when you remove your mask, to make sure it's in a secure location. So it's not just like hanging out of the side of your pocket. They're different behavioral asks than telling people don't litter. Oh, I don't litter. But there are those things that happen, or keeping the trash in your car in a trash bag or container inside your car so that it's less likely to blow out. Those are real specific behavioral asks that we can address. But often when we say don't litter, we think that people know exactly what to do. And so we're not telling people, here's what you need to do. Put your mask in a secure location, contain your trash in your car, giving people real specific actions to do to prevent litter, I think, and, pairing that with effective messaging is another way to start addressing some of those specific challenges that have really different barriers associated with them than just tossing litter on the ground.
Right. One of the comments that I had on, or one of the observations I had on that is that there's a single-use water bottle that the manufacturer of it has a little tiny blue tab. It's a one specific type of water bottle. And when they break that security tab, that seal, that piece of plastic is about 3/4 of an inch long. And it's really easy for it to break off. And I've actually done it myself. I don't use plastic water bottles for the most part now, but I've actually done it myself and didn't notice it because those sports bottles I used to use.
Yeah.
Don't do them anymore, sorry. But it's actually really easy. I kind of look at it and say, on a hiking trail, that probably 90% or 85, 90% of the litter is probably accidental. There's certainly a component that is not. Somebody did it intentionally because they didn't have the infrastructure, or they just didn't care. But most of it appears to be accidental in my observations myself. So it kind of goes along with that. Hey, Matt, any other questions that are on the list there?
Yeah, I think just one last question would be a good way to wrap things up and sort of get everyone's last bit with this discussion here. It's just, what are some just really simple resources or activities that our listeners today are able to do for World Cleanup Day? In order to going off the title, adopt our Earth. Like what are some last bits of tips or tricks that people can do, not just, on World Cleanup Day that's coming up on the 18th, but, for days and months and years following after.
So one of our mantras on National Cleanup Day that we use is, if you're not having fun, you did it wrong. And so what I encourage people to do is to go out there, sign up on a cleanup to show that you care. And that can be done at earthday.org, nationalcleanupday.org, or at the World Cleanup Day website, obviously. And so what we want people to do is just simply take that small action of signing up. Can be a private sign up. Do a cleanup. You can report it if you want to. That would be great. But more importantly, show us that you had fun. Tell us the stories about why you did it. What kind of fun that you had, both as your group and as a community.
And I'll add something with the digital media space, as I would say, really try to harness the power of social media and digital media, because I'm guessing most of us use it. A lot of you are tuning in on a social media platform, and a lot of these organizations that have the resources and information and updates that you would maybe be interested in, or ways to participate, you can follow them on social media and easily get those on a daily basis. And it can be a really positive influence in your life instead of turning social media into something toxic. So.
Yeah, and I would just add, go ahead, Steve.
No, go ahead, Jennifer. Go ahead.
I would just add to that, in posting those things, that positive focus. And so I think the tendency is to focus on, oh, look at this horrible problem. Look at all this trash. Look at all these people that are doing the wrong thing. But it's far more effective and far more influential to others if you're focusing on, all of these people that are participating jointly to keep these areas clean rather than to fix something that's broken. So keeping it positive.
Right. So, Meg, what's the hashtag for cleanup news?
We just have a general hashtag cleanup news, but there's a lot of other cleanup. I know. There's a lot of other associated hashtags, like the trash tag challenge or plogging. Those are the two I can think of. You probably know more of them, actually, Steve.
Yeah. So. And then I was going to talk to David on that one. David, what's the hashtag for hashtags for Keep America Beautiful?
Yeah, I would, definitely hashtag KAB, but hashtag 152 and you, showing that you're part of the solution. And if you're plogging, hashtag plogging, hashtag trash dash, always lots of resources on KAB.org. I loved Jennifer as that final message, being positive. Is so effective and influential. So that's what we can all do here.
Sounds good. And Matt, what's the hashtag for Earth Day?
So our hashtag is the Great Global Cleanup. So this goes along with our year-round cleanup campaign. So I know we had some links going on during this webinar here on the ticker below, so feel free, to go to earthday.org, and explore our cleanups page. It has our map. It has a lot of different digital toolkits as well that show you how to get involved, on social media from a communications perspective, and also some checklists and ways to actually get on the ground and do cleanups.
Right. So for National Cleanup Day, the hashtag is National Cleanup Day. For World Cleanup Day, it's, believe it or not, World Cleanup Day. So I would say go out, adopt the earth, and go clean up. I hope that everybody has fun. Is there anything else anybody has on the panel?
No.
I'd say we call it a day. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks everybody who listened in.
Excellent. Yeah, just to kind of close everything out, you heard from some awesome voices today, that really have some impressive careers. So I hope everyone, is able to make an impact this World Cleanup Day, and build off a lot of these initiatives that were discussed today and participate in cleanups, not just on the 18th, but also year round. I thought it was pretty cool today how, I was looking at the chat box. We saw, a lot of people from all over the world. I saw some of my volunteers from Zambia in my previous role as the director of our work in Sub-Saharan Africa. We saw folks from Waterbury in Connecticut and States. We saw a lot of people from Pakistan. So, this really is a global effort. So, what I got out of this is to get out and to clean, form teams, engage people on social media. The drop in the bucket, in terms of cleanups, I really do believe that it's effective and individual efforts matter and cleanups matter as well. So feel free to join any, of the community affiliates in your in your regions and join these efforts. We're really excited for World Cleanup Day, and I thank everyone for participating in this webinar and joining our Earth Day Live session. If you're interested in joining more Earth Day Live sessions, we have regular emails going out, so we should have one occurring at the end of the month. But let's try to make this World Cleanup Day something special. And again, I want to thank the audience and our wonderful panelists that we had on the call today. So thanks, guys and gals.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, this is Steve
And Bill,
for National Cleanup Day.
on behalf of World Cleanup Day for 2021, join us in your local country and community to clean up.
Hi, I'm Mayor Todd Gloria. National Cleanup Day is on September 18th, and San Diego is ready to do its part. As part of the partnership with EarthDay.org and the Keep America Beautiful campaign, National Cleanup Day encourages Americans to get outside and safely clean up their communities. The nationwide Day of Service plans to get communities involved to help keep their own neighborhoods clean and sustainable. Since its inception in 2017, hundreds of thousands of participants have helped clean up their parks, beaches, rivers, forests, and everywhere in between across the country. National Cleanup Day is a call to action that is dedicated to keeping our nation's public spaces free of litter and trash.
Here in San Jose, we are enthusiastically in on National Cleanup Day. We are launching a mass effort with thousands of volunteers and partnering in new ways with members of our community. We hope you'll join us for National Cleanup Day this September 18th.
One of the City of Amarillo's goals with National Cleanup Day is growing a sense of civic pride in all residents.
I feel like that it's important for all of our neighbors to take pride not only in their own property but in the entire community. So we just appreciate people showing their civic pride, you know, and taking care of what belongs to them.
We have had an amazing community turnout here today. So many volunteers of all ages from all across the city. It has definitely been a success working on our civic pride and beautifying our city.
Snow says it's also a chance for Amarillo residents to work together and get hands-on in bettering their own community.
I love seeing all the neighbors come out, everyone getting to meet and greet and talk to each other today, and then just make a difference in their community. It's been wonderful to be a part of it.
Greetings from sunny Southern California. I'm Supervisor Karen Spiegel, Chair for the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. I'm here today to encourage everyone who is able to get involved in World Cleanup Day and the simple act of picking up litter. We hope you encourage your family and friends to pick up litter too, because anyone of any age can pick up litter anywhere where they are. Think about this. What if every person picked up just one piece of litter? What would our county look like then?